Alright, here we are back again on our Thursday video where we have movements being made by the US against Germany. Germany is in a bit of hot water and they are being heavily attacked here where their factory has a -8 production value, which is units that they're going to have to pour into that in order to output anything, really, which is unfortunate because that's units that they could be spending elsewhere on much and desperately needed units. Alright, so the USSR is making some moves, which was to be expected. They're taking back the area of Vologda and even recapturing Ivenki National Okrug, which had to be expected, honestly. There was really no way of looking past that. They're also going to start making a bit of a push on Xinjiang with their massive stack of infantry here and even moving for some retaliation in Persia, all of which I can't really say that I am surprised by. Yeah, they had no infantry lost here. But it looks like they've had some pretty heavy casualties in the area of Persia so far. And it looks like I'll be walking away with the victory out of Persia. But not so lucky over here in Xinjiang, unfortunately. So Germany is making about as many moves as they can. It looks like they paid off the debts on their factory here. And now they're going to war against the Allied forces here in Paris, which is good because it gets them off their back, but they don't have any air support to take on any of the sea units over here. So Paris is taken back, and they've got a decent showing of infantry here, and have a nice amount of fortification back in Berlin. But the UK is definitely going to keep pushing and making things hairy. And they're just funneling more and more units into the support that they are setting up in this area. All right, so we've got to pitch in and help where we can. Honestly, the best thing that I can do for Germany at this point is moving my take on a suicide mission over to Morocco, because as soon as I land here, I'm going to get retaliated on by the US forces over here. They can just dump, 5 to 10 units in this area, and then they can just march back across. But we didn't suffer too bad of a casualty on our last round, so let's go ahead and build up a couple of units here. So we're going to stick with our tradition of outputting a tank, an artillery, and an infantry from our factory in Calcutta. And I shouldn't need any other transports at this point in time. I do want to go ahead and get both a bomber and a fighter. We will also want to get more of our artillery and some tanks. Actually, we're going to back off of one of those and get an infantry instead, just to keep things a little more routine. Alright, so for my combat moves, I've really just got to focus on keeping as much of a buffer here in Xinjiang and the neighboring areas. So I'm blitzing a tank through Kazaka over to Xinjiang, moving in these units as well. Now I'm probably going to take some pretty heavy casualties if I get return fire, but I will be bringing in a bunch of my bombers and my fighter planes to help with Xinjiang, so it shouldn't take more than just one turn. And that's all I'm doing on a combat move, apart from this tank, which I'll be moving from Libya to Algeria and Morocco to liberate these areas and provide more IPC to Germany, because they desperately need it at this point. So let's go ahead and move into the one turn of combat that we have here. Alright, so here we are in Xinjiang. We just need to score 5 hits and hopefully take less than 3. So let's go ahead and get those dice rolling and see where we land. So nothing from an artillery and our assist from the infantry there. We've got 7 here. Hopefully we can get at least 4. We've got more than enough, it seems, from our tanks and our fighters. So let's see where the returned fire falls. Nothing from the infantry, which is good. Hopefully we do end up getting one back from the tank, which is unfortunate, but we'll take that on our infantry there. And that will be a decided victory here. So off of our non-combat, we're going to bring our bombers back to Calcutta and India. Our fighters, I do want to go ahead and land on the border here to deter any attacks from Calcutta in Persia, as I should be moving some more units up here to fortify as well. Not going to move this guy at this point in time. As a matter of fact, we'll be moving 2 infantry, 2 artillery, and then an additional infantry with a tank that will be dropping right here in Goratia to help fortify against any onslaught. Well, it's expected onslaught. We're going to have a retaliation from the Soviets over here in the very near future. And then let's go ahead and move these guys into Anhui, as well as move all of these units up to help support in Persia. There's no way they're getting through here. They might come over and retake Kazakhs, but there's no way they're coming in through Persia. So that's going to be all we do on this turn. So now we just go to our placement. So let's go ahead and dump a tank, an infantry, and an artillery over here. And then we'll land one of our bombers, one of our aircraft, and then the other 3 units on the mainland here. And that's going to do it for this turn. My side of the map looks decently well, decently under control, but Germany is definitely suffering quite a bit. Alright, so Germany's got a counterattack here if they want to upkeep anything. Unfortunately, they can't really retaliate against this exorbitant fleet of ships that the US has, mainly because there's just all these destroyers in the way, and there's no way they'd be able to get through all of them. But hopefully they can retain a victory here, which it looks like they have. And they just didn't, it looks like they didn't have the manpower to move into Southern Europe and retake anything there, which is a bit unfortunate for them. Alright, so it's now my turn to make some more purchases. Pretty terrible movement here from the Soviets into Xinjiang and Sichuan, which, I mean, you had to see it coming, but at the same time, it's just something you never want to see or deal with. But we've got to do something in order to kind of push them back. I was hoping to make a move on Caucasus, which this turn probably would be my best bet, but I don't know. Well, at least they didn't make any movements into Yakut, so let's see what we can do. Let's go ahead and get our standard tank artillery. I'm actually going to swap out the infantry that I would typically place here in favor of a fighter that I can bring in to this section of the fight. And then we've still got a bunch of units to work with, so I'm going to go ahead. There's really nothing else worth having me build over here. You know what? Call me crazy, but I'm going to build a factory and place it here in Manchuria, because I'd like to be able to funnel more characters directly instead of having to ferry them across. And if I have some tanks that I can start blitzing through, that's really going to be a power play and a good move for me in the long run. So we've still got 13 units to dole out, so let's go ahead and use the rest of those on some units there. And that's what we're going to go ahead and call it. Alright, so that's going to be about all I want to do combat-wise. So I'm going to fly in my bomber from the mainland over to Sichuan to help out with one of my infantry that I'll send over here, as well as a bunch of my fighters. I'm going to go ahead and send this last fighter up to help with a few other units in Xinjiang. I'm bringing in all of my bombers into that fight because I need higher firepower to hopefully cut this down to the fewest amount of turns as possible. Yeah, this might be some heavy casualties for me, but at the end of the day, it's going to hopefully draw the attention of the Soviets further this way than having them pinch more onto Germany and allotting us some more time to rebalance some things. So let's go ahead and make those moves. Alright, so here's the big fight in Xinjiang. Hopefully we can get a couple of hits. Nothing from our artillery there. Maybe one or two from my fighters. One, that's something. And if I can get all of these guys to hit, that's going to be hopefully all we need. Well, it would be all we need. And all 4 of them hit, which is good. So that means this is the only turn of combat and we can minimize some casualties. No returning fire from the infantry, which is good. We're bound to get at least like 2 from these tanks. And we get 3, which is not great. So let's go ahead and take one on this plane that's come the furthest. No, none of them have come the furthest. So we'll take one there. Then we'll take one here. This is going to be pricey, but I think that's the best distribution of those hits, allowing us to retake those provinces and still gain from it. Expensive fight, but we did net a positive, so I guess there's that. Now for Sichuan, this one shouldn't be as bad. We're bringing in 6 units and some more disposable units, I believe. But it could still end up being ugly. Actually, it is going to end up being ugly. I'm going to take a casualty on a fighter if I don't get any hits on this tank. Nothing from my infantry. Tanks going down with the hits from the fighter here. And no returning fire there, so that's a positive. So quite a bit of some casualties here, but we netted a collective positive when compared with the USSR. So we're going to have to fly my bomber in to fortify here. I can fly the rest of my bombers back home. This fighter I'm bringing back here. These fighters I'm bringing over here. Those are all of the fighter non-combats I need. This little guy has survived, so I think... you know what? I'm going to leave him there, because he... If I move him, then the US is just going to sweep in and take more, which is not what we're looking for here. So we're going to go ahead and move all of these units up to fortify Persia further than what we already had. This guy's moved, so we're going to go ahead and move all of these guys to fortify the Yakut border and make a further push at that point. This fighter I'm actually going to bring in to that zone as well, just so he can be participating with the rest of the fighting. And I've got to dump a bunch of my units from the mainland here into Manchuria to help protect my newly constructed factory. So we're going to take one of you and 2 of you, and then the rest of you, and dump you here. All of you there. So that's going to be everything for non-combat. Alright, so let's go ahead and build our factory here in Manchuria. That will allow us to start churning out land units here. I think I'm going to wholly dedicate this factory to building tanks so we can get some increased mobility as we move around. Meanwhile, we'll go ahead and build a tank here, an infantry or an artillery here, as well as our fighter. So we've got some increased firepower in that area, and the rest of these units will go into the mainland. And that's going to be it for this turn. So Germany looks like they're in a bit of trouble up here. Well, when haven't they been in all reality? But they should hopefully be able to take a decent amount of casualties off. Looks like they are currently at a deficit and no further return fire there, which is unfortunate. They'll probably end up losing here as well. Although not terribly, because they retained the rights to the land at the very least. At least before the UK or someone funnels in some troops here. Alright, this was to be expected. We're getting some counterattacks into both Xinjiang and Sichuan from the Russians, which is a bit problematic. This guy's not going to be able to hold down the fort this time like he did previously, which is unfortunate. But we are running them out of this area. And as far as Sichuan goes, we might be able to take one or two of them with us, but nope, not going to be the case, which is unfortunate. We're about to make a big nasty push on Kaukas, so don't know why they didn't put more units here, in all honesty. So Germany's taking some power back, which is good. They've reestablished some control in these areas, which they really needed, and funneling more units into protecting the main capital city, which again was very much needed. There's no way they're going to get Paris back anytime soon without any extra assistance. Alright, so we've got some trouble on our hands again in China. The USSR really swept in and took these areas from us, which is unfortunate, because I was ready to confront them up here, and I must have just spooked them down. But it is what it is, so let's go ahead and make our purchases. We're going to build some tanks out of this factory. We're going to build another tank and artillery and an infantry like we've done previously here. We're going to get an additional artillery and then a fighter as well, and that's going to max us out. Alright, so for our combat turns, I'm going to be moving all of these guys into Evenki National Orkurg, except for the tank, who's going to continue through into Vologda, which is going to net me a positive of 3, which is certainly nice. I can't reach any of these guys with any of my turns, at least not with what I want to do. Because as you see the madness that I'm doing here, I'm moving every single troop that I can to come help over in raiding the province of Kaukas. Because that is really going to pull some focus away from the Germans, which is really what they need at this point to kind of bounce back and get on their feet. I don't think I can get this fighter in. Yeah, it's just out of range to come help with this fight, which is unfortunate. Now, I could, in all reality, make some moves here, but I think I'm just going to have to fortify this spot on a non-combat move, if we're being honest, and then do damage control later. But I'm hoping this massive push here is really going to pull some of these units back, or at least keep them where they are. So let's do it. Alright, here comes the bloodbath in Kaukas. They don't have any anti-aircraft, which is good because I brought 10 planes into this fight. So let's see where we get with our 2s and how much damage we can deal. That's 1, which is 1 more than it would be otherwise. Now we've got 11 3s. And that's going to be a lot of hits. So that's 4 hits here, another 4, and 9. I think that takes out everything. It does. We are all good. So now it's time to see what damage we take on the back blow. because we're definitely going to take some hits. And that's 3 hits that we have to allocate. So let's go ahead and take 2 here and 1 here. And then there's just the tank that we have to be aware of. And it's not going to return any fire, which is good. That leaves us a good, strong support. And we absolutely annihilated the competition here in Caucasus. Which will be good, because that's then more places that I can funnel some units out of. So let's fly as many of these guys back here as I can. Looks like I can get all of them. And then we're going to fly... I can't take these fighters back too far, so we're going to move all of them here so they can still fly in and assist with other combat phases that might be needed. Now, this guy I do need to bring in closer, so we're going to fly him down to fortify on Hui. Actually, no. We're going to fly him into Kwangtung. And we're also going to bring this guy over to Kwangtung. Additionally, we're going to move all of these guys here to prevent anything from spreading. And then I can actually take these guys. So I'm going to take 1 of you, 2 of you, and 2 of you. I can dump you all down here, which is very nice. You're already moving to Yunnan. And then I've got to move all of my land units down here as well. And then we've got to grab this fighter. Come on. And we're going to go ahead and land him with the other planes here in Kwangtung. I've got to move this guy up, because he's not going to do any good just sitting there. And everything else is already moved, except for this tank, which I'm going to leave there. So let's go ahead and call it for this phase. And mobilize some troops. So we've got to put 3 of these guys here, the other one down here, 1 more of them, and 1 more of you down here. And then we're going to go ahead and leave the rest out here in Tokyo. And that's going to do it for today's episode. Let me know what you think of this series down in the comments below. If there's other things that you are interested in seeing, or other modes of gameplay or teams being used, as I'm open to doing that as well. Until then, thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.